Hey guys. Tonight, we stumble into shadows darker than the plague doctor's pantry. The door slams behind you with the finality of a guillotine. A torch flares, footsteps echo over uneven stone. You're not in your bed anymore. You're in a back alley, somewhere deep in medieval Europe, half sober and wholly out of place, holding a coin pouch that jingles just enough to get you into trouble. A hand appears, crooked fingers, rings with missing stones, and beckons. It belongs to someone who hasn't bathed since the last pope died. You follow, of course. What else can you do? It's raining, you're hungry, you're broke enough to try something exotic, and this brothel had the loudest lute music on the street. You step under a crooked lintel. The sign swings in the wind above. La petite mort et fromage. Yes, really. The little death and cheese. Inside, it's humid with perfume, body heat, and is that cabbage? Hard to say. It smells like someone tried to cover up mildew with rosewater and hope. If this sleepy scroll through the past brought you peace, a like and a sub would mean a lot. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. How are you doing tonight? Now take a breath. The door's closed. Your night in the brothel has begun. The entrance chamber is dim, lit by tallow candles stuck into cracked wine bottles. Shadows jitter across the walls like gossip with legs. The walls lean inward like they're listening. On one, a tapestry depicting a hunt scene, except the hounds are suspiciously humanoid. You blink. It doesn't help. A woman glides toward you in a gown stitched from at least 4 other gowns. It rustles like it's alive. "Welcome, sir," she says with a smile that shows only 3 teeth, 2 of which are clearly borrowed. "You'll be staying for the night?" It isn't really a question. You nod, because you're polite, and she gestures to a dark hallway behind a curtain of questionable silk. It sticks to your sleeve as you pass through. The hallway is narrower than your dignity. You sidestep a bucket, a duck, and what might be a former client. Everything here is too soft or too sharp, and the candlelight plays tricks. A man stumbles past you with lipstick on his forehead and a raw turnip in his belt. You don't ask. You just keep walking. You're led to a small room, more closet than suite, with a sagging stool, a bowl of water that's already seen too many faces, and a cot that makes a crunching sound when you sit on it. The woman, who introduced herself only as Mother, informs you that your pleasure partner will arrive shortly depending on availability, temperament, and coin weight. You try to ask what that means. She's already gone. Left alone, you take stock. There's no lock on the door. The window doesn't open, but lets in a whispering draft that smells like the Thames in July. Dung, despair, and a hint of plague. The candle by the bed sputters like it's got opinions. A minute later, someone screams in a distant room. You flinch. No one else does. Somewhere a lute is being played, badly, and someone's shouting the Latin names of birds. Historians still argue whether such brothels doubled as informal libraries or performance venues. All we know is that one manuscript discovered in a brothel cesspit contained both a love spell and a recipe for eel pie. You glance at your reflection in a polished metal plate on the wall. Your hair's damp, your eyes are wide, and your judgment? Questionable. A knock. You jump. The door creaks open and reveals a figure draped in velvet. She enters without a word and throws a pair of dice on the floor. You're about to ask why when she points at them. "Lucky 7, she mutters. "You'll do." That's your introduction. Her name, she says, is Lark, or maybe Lurk. Her accent is thick, her eye makeup thicker. She smells like a mix of frankincense and beef stock. You try to make conversation. "So, how's business?" She snorts. "Better than dentistry. Worse than necromancy." She gestures at your coin pouch and asks whether you want the short fantasy, the medium regret, or the long cry. You pick the medium, mostly out of budgetary anxiety. The mattress groans when you sit together. Something shifts beneath the linen. You hope it was a mouse. You pray it wasn't a foot. You tell her it's your first time. She tells you it's her fourth today. That gets awkward. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a tiny clay pot. It smells like mint and crushed beetles. She smears it on your chest without explanation. You shiver. It burns. Numbing ointment, she says. Or possibly deer glue. My cousin makes it. You hear someone scream the phrase, "It's still attached," from down the hall. Lark doesn't blink. She starts humming. You recognize the tune. It's Greensleeves, but the naughty version. The one with verses about sausages. You didn't know that was a thing until now. You lie back and try to relax. She drapes a cloth over your face and whispers, "For modesty." Then she lights incense that smells like cinnamon and mold. You think you're supposed to be aroused, but your foot is asleep and your arm is now itchy. Suddenly, knock knock. The door flies open. A man in a fur hat and no pants stumbles in yelling, "Where's my ferret?" He glares around the room, makes eye contact with you, frowns and leaves. Lark shrugs. That's Gregor. He thinks he works here. You've been here 15 minutes. You begin to suspect you won't survive the night. A fun historical note, many medieval brothels were regulated by local governments, taxed more than taverns, and sometimes had specific dress codes for workers, like striped kerchiefs or bells on ankles. That way, clients could distinguish them from, say, enthusiastic bakers. You think about this as Lark draws something on your belly with a quill. You look. It's a duck. She says it's for luck. You don't feel lucky. Outside, the rain has turned to hail. The roof leaks onto the floor, forming a puddle that smells faintly of gin and regret. And the night is just beginning. You don't sleep, not really. You drift in and out, blinking against the candle's nervous flicker, while Lark hums herself into unconsciousness beside you. She sleeps like a tax collector, one hand in her pouch, one eye slightly open. You, on the other hand, are lying on what feels like a rotting bale of straw wrapped in old tapestries. There's something jabbing your shoulder. It could be a splinter. It could be a preserved pea from the reign of Edward II. You don't dare investigate. The room grows warmer, or maybe just thicker. The scent of Lark's breath, which began as cloves and end-of-day cider, has deepened overnight into a meaty sort of fog. Your pillow smells like wet sheep and confessions. This is the part of the night the walls start to talk. Not literally. Probably. But there's a distant moaning now, steady, echoing. Could be someone in pleasure, could be someone in prayer. It's hard to tell in here. Everyone sounds like they're about to either climax or confess. Your stomach growls. Loudly. That sad little dinner tray is still on the stool. Half a cup of gritty red wine, a lump of what might have been stew 2 days ago, and 3 figs. You try one. It crunches. That's not how figs should behave. You put the rest back. Fact time. Medieval brothel cuisine was not exactly the stuff of cookbooks. Clients were often given meals as part of the service, but these usually consisted of stale bread, soft cheese, and whatever was left over from the nearby monastery's garbage pile. Ironically, the monks often had better meals. You sit up, wincing as the mattress wheezes under you like it's giving up on life. Your clothes are in a pile near the door, now noticeably damp despite no visible water source. One of your shoes has a bite mark in it. You shuffle toward the hallway. It's worse than you remember. Mustier, more humid. The smell hits harder now. Sweat, burnt oil, spoiled fish, and something unidentifiable, but persistent. You pass a candle holder fashioned from what you swear is a foot bone. No one comments. Neither do you. At the far end, you glimpse what looks like a dining area. It's not exactly inviting. There's a long table flanked by mismatched chairs, one of which is clearly just an old spinning wheel with a cushion on it. A man with a rag tied around his head is snoring into a bowl. Next to him, a cat chews on what might be a pigeon or an unpopular client. You hear laughter behind you? You turn, slowly. Two courtesans are playing cards on the floor, using an upturned helmet as a table. One looks up and waves. She has a black eye and a very cheerful smile. "You must be the one who ordered the medium regret," she says. You don't know how to respond to that. You sit down at the end of the table. Someone, possibly an apprentice brothel boy, slides a plate in front of you. It contains a half-boiled egg, 3 beans, count them, and a slice of something jelly-like. "Breakfast," he says proudly. You nod. "Thanks. What's this?" He grins. "Meat." Then he vanishes into the back. A little fun detail for your nightmares. It wasn't uncommon for brothels to acquire food from nearby butcher's bins, monastery kitchens, or plague wagons if times were tight. There are records of meat pies made from things that historians still won't commit to naming. Across the room, someone starts singing, badly. It's an old drinking song that rhymes trousers with wowzers. A lute twangs. A mug is thrown. You duck. You're trying to decide whether to brave a bite of your mystery meat when Mother appears again. Her hair is now styled into some kind of lattice, and she's holding a ledger. "You slept," she says flatly. You nod. She scribbles something. "That's 2 extra pence." "I didn't sleep well?" You breathed. "We charge for breath." You consider objecting. Then remember your coin pouch is lighter than your self-respect. You nod and hand her a few sad coins. She bites one. It crunches. "French," she mutters. "Figures." The dining room grows louder. More clients stumble in, some fresh-faced and hopeful, others visibly crawling with new regrets. One man enters backwards and yells, "She was a witch," before collapsing in a heap. No one helps. You look down at your egg. It has a faint green ring around the yolk. You eat it anyway. A scholarly debate exists over whether brothels were centers of disease or merely hubs for diseases to gather before heading off to war. What we do know, a surprising number of brothel-related deaths listed mysterious breakfast illness as cause. Lark appears beside you suddenly, hair in a nest-like bun now swarming with decorative feathers, or possibly lice. "You still here?" she asks. Bold. "I thought we had the whole night." She snorts. "Technically, but you're not what they'd call a premium suitor, more of a mid-tier favor monkey." You're about to respond when the door bursts open and a man in full chainmail limps in, groaning. He's got lipstick smeared across his neck and a small dog tucked under his arm. "Room for one more," he gasps. No one answers. In a corner, someone has started playing dice. Another is oiling a crossbow. A third man sobs quietly while eating what appears to be soap. You stand wobbling a little. You feel filmy, like you've been gently basted in someone else's night terrors. You walk back toward your room and pass what used to be a curtain, now just a damp rag flapping in defiance of gravity. Back in your chamber, Lark is gone. Your clothes are folded. That seems suspicious. Nothing in this building has been folded in centuries. You pick up your shirt. It's been laundered, which apparently means it's wetter and now smells of vinegar. You put it on. You make peace with your choices. Before you leave the room, you check your pockets. One is missing. The other now contains a walnut and a drawing of a duck with very angry eyes. You open the door. You step into the hall. You haven't died yet, but the lice are organizing. The brothel's main chamber is louder now. Louder and wetter. The floor squelches beneath your boots as you return, and that's deeply troubling. You try not to look too closely at the puddles. They glisten in colors that nature never intended. Somewhere, water drips steadily from a ceiling beam, landing in a rusty tankard that overflows onto what might be an old book or a sleeping dwarf. Neither option bodes well. Your coin pouch jingles, barely, and that's the problem. Before you can even consider your exit, Mother intercepts you again like a debt-collecting wraith. "Thinking of leaving?" she asks sweetly, though the tone suggests she'd prefer you stayed until your soul was fully mortgaged. You nod cautiously. "Just needed some air." She clucks her tongue. Air's extra. You're ushered back into a corner by one of her underlings, an oily lad named Flinch, whose mustache is so thin it might be painted on. He squints at your face, then your hands. "You don't look rich," he mutters. "I'm not." Flinch nods sagely. "Then you'll want the economy package." He gestures toward a cluster of alcoves near the back. No linens, partial roof, and a courtesan who still thinks it's $12.74. That last detail doesn't even surprise you. Nothing surprises you anymore. You agree. He scribbles something on a tablet. "Choose your companion," he says. "Left is softer. Right bites. You go left. Softness wins today." The curtain parts. Inside is a woman in her late 20s, or perhaps early hundreds. It's hard to tell. Her hair is styled in what might be a ceremonial nest, complete with a pigeon skull ornament. She looks up from her embroidery. "Do you like boars?" she asks without preamble. "Like the animal?" "No, the metaphor." You pause. "Sure." She nods, satisfied. "Good, you'll do." This is Edeline, or Edeline, as she pronounces it with flair. She asks if you have a favorite saint. You pick one at random. "Saint Crispin?" She snorts. Coward's choice. Then throws a blanket over your lap and demands you tell her a secret. You offer a mild confession about shoplifting an apple as a child. She frowns. "Too small, try again." You glance around the room. Threadbare curtains, walls etched with ancient stains, a candle that flickers like it owes someone money. A rat peeks in and leaves again, offended. You try another secret. "I once faked a limp to avoid church." She beams. There it is, sin with style. At this point, you're no longer sure if she's a courtesan or a holy woman. Either way, she starts to massage your shoulders with what smells like goose fat and hope. The warmth is oddly comforting until she starts chanting something that sounds like a recipe or a curse, possibly both. Historians still argue whether Dark Ages brothels occasionally doubled as folk healing centers. Some evidence suggests that herbal remedies, ointments, and even light chanting were offered alongside services, though not always by request. You begin to relax until she blows in your ear and whispers, "The lice are watching." You tense immediately. She laughs. You don't know whether you're meant to laugh back, so you opt for a polite wheeze. "I was a priest's concubine once," she says, rubbing your temples with alarming pressure. "He taught me the Psalms and how to bite a man's ear just enough to make him cry without screaming." You nod, like that's perfectly normal. She taps your forehead. "Stop thinking so loud." The door creaks. A lanky figure enters with a tray. On it, tea. Or a substance that aspires to be tea. The cup is cracked. The spoon is bent. The smell is spirited. Adeline accepts it, sniffs it, then pours it onto the floor. "No," she says. "Too ambitious." The figure nods and retreats. You sip your own cup out of politeness. It tastes like boiled despair with a hint of mint. Maybe basil. Possibly floor. You blink. Adeline is watching you. You're cute when you're confused. She purrs, though it sounds more like a diagnosis. Thank you. You have kind ears, she adds. It's not a compliment you've heard before, and likely never will again. Your time with Adeline continues with a slow unraveling of conversation, half compliments, and a card game involving dice, 4 pebbles, and a drawing of a goat with 6 legs. You lose spectacularly. You owe me your fingernail, she jokes. You're not sure if it's a joke. A historical tidbit. While sex work was officially frowned upon by the church, many medieval brothels operated semi-legally, with courtesans enjoying more autonomy than married women. Some even managed personal businesses within the brothel itself. Herbs, charms, and sometimes fortune-telling for a few extra coins. Adeline seems to be one of those entrepreneurs. Before you leave, she insists you purchase her signature charm, a ward against midnight regrets. It's made of string, wax, and a piece of what she says is dried monk tongue. You buy it. You're not proud. As you exit, she blows you a kiss. You duck by reflex. The main hall is even more crowded now. Clients shuffle like sleepwalkers. A man is vomiting into a helmet. Someone else is playing the hurdy-gurdy while balanced on a table. The room smells like disappointment and boiled liver. You lean against a column that isn't so much supporting the ceiling as it is threatening to collapse out of spite. You check your coin pouch again. 1 coin left. A sad French coin. Useless in most markets, treasured only here. For being shiny enough to fool someone who's already 3 meads deep. You consider leaving. Mother appears, again. You've enjoyed 2 rooms, 1 charm, and a full beverage. That's another surcharge. You stare at her. I only have 1 coin left. She smiles. Then it better be good company. She points to a new chamber door. It's smaller, lower, has a faint hum behind it. You're sending me to the closet, aren't you? No, she says. We call it the introspection suite. You sigh. Does it come with windows? It comes with wisdom. You're too tired to argue. You shuffle toward the door. It creaks open on its own. You enter, and the door closes behind you. It's dark. Properly dark. The kind of dark that feels like velvet over your eyes and moss in your throat. The only light comes from a single beeswax candle stub that flickers behind a stained glass slat the size of your palm. The walls are stone, sweating, cold, and far too close. You turn and realize there's no handle on the inside of the door. Of course not. The floor is covered in straw. Not fresh straw, not even moderately recent straw. This is the kind of straw that's given up. It crunches beneath your boots like regret. You sit, then you stand. Then you try to sit again, but the straw bites back. You've entered the part of the brothel meant for people with too few coins and too many questions. The introspection suite. It smells like a combination of mildew, foot balm, and boiled pig ears. You try not to breathe too deeply. In the far corner, something shifts. You freeze. Then comes the whisper. You ever heard of St. Pelagia? You haven't. She was a harlot, says the voice. But she repented so hard she turned into a skeleton and ascended directly into sainthood. You blink into the darkness. That's inspiring. A shape shuffles forward. It's a man, or what used to be one, barefoot, bearded, and wearing what looks like a monk's habit, but smells like he's been sleeping in a latrine. Which you quickly realize he probably has. Name's Borl, he says cheerily, as if you've just bumped into each other at a midsummer fair. They let me stay here sometimes. I pay in wisdom. You nod cautiously. What kind of wisdom? He squats beside you, pulls something out of his robe, either a piece of cheese or a fungus colony, and begins nibbling it. Historical wisdom, he says with a gummy grin. For instance, did you know that in Avignon, some brothels hired scribes to write love letters on behalf of their less literate customers? Romantic, right? Until half of them turned out to be plagiarized sermons. You blink. That's oddly specific. He nods, pleased with himself. Also, one time I saw a goose eat a candle and live. Coincidence? Maybe? Prophecy? Almost certainly. You sit in silence for a moment. What's this room for exactly? Bor leans in conspiratorially. This room is for when the brothel needs to keep you on site until you either pay your tab or renounce earthly desires. That tracks. You look around. There's a rusted bucket in the corner. It might be a chamber pot. It might be an offering bowl. You don't plan to get close enough to find out. The ceiling has a small hole through which you can hear someone laughing drunkenly above. Someone who, judging by the rhythm, is attempting to dance on a table. That will end poorly. A rat skitters across your boot. You try to flinch with dignity. You fail. Borl offers you part of his cheese. You politely decline. There's a scratching noise behind the wall. Not loud. Just deliberate. You ask about it. Oh, that's Henrietta, he says. She's the wall ghost. Lost her foot in a poker game. Now she just paces. You nod as if that makes sense. Another fun medieval tidbit. Some brothels in larger cities were constructed in former monasteries, repurposing holy architecture into places of earthly delight. Many patrons believed the residual holiness of the walls kept the worst diseases away. Historians still argue whether this superstition actually decreased infection rates or just increased spiritual confusion. You pace the room. Straw clings to your boots, your legs, your soul. Borl starts humming something that sounds suspiciously like Dies Irae, but with a bawdy twist. You catch the phrase cloistered buns and stop listening. You tap the wall. You wonder if it's hollow. You wonder what's behind it. You wonder whether you'll ever see daylight again. Then a creak. The door opens a fraction. Mother peers in. Still sane. You nod. Debatable. Then you're ready. She tosses something into the room. You catch it reflexively. A tunic. Freshish. Definitely not yours. Put that on. You're heading to the courtyard. You hesitate. What's in the courtyard? She grins. Recreation. Borl winks at you. Tell Marjorie I said hi. She owes me a tooth. You put the tunic on. It smells like ashes and cologne, the medieval equivalent of patchouli and panic. Outside, the corridor is brighter now. Not clean, but brighter. You follow Flinch down a side passage that smells less like cabbage and more like wet rope and singed parchment. He gestures at a wooden door with a scorch mark across the top. This way to paradise. You open it. The courtyard is barely more than a square of stone with one wilted tree, a goat on a rope, and 3 chairs. One chair is on fire. No one seems to mind. There's a woman sitting on a barrel, sipping something from a goblet carved from bone. She waves you over. New boy, she shouts. We're playing Who's Been Here Longest. Spoiler, I always win. This is Marjorie. She has 1 gold tooth, no eyebrows, and enough jewelry to sink a ferry. She smells like lavender oil and vinegar wine. Her laugh is so loud it startles the goat. You sit. The other player is a blindfolded man in fur boots who just shouts Thursday every few minutes. You ask what the rules are. There are none, Marjorie says. You just confess things until someone gets uncomfortable. You shift in your chair. I once told a girl I was a knight just to get out of a feast. Marjorie grins. I once bit a bishop. Your turn again. This continues for a while. You confess. She confesses louder. You start to lose track of time. The goat eats someone's sock. The sky grows darker. Why are you still here, you ask? She shrugs. Fell in love, then fell out, stayed out of spite. Another man joins you. He's shirtless and tattooed with Latin phrases that might be spells or breakfast menus. He says nothing, just stares at you until you offer him your last coin. He pockets it and walks away. You're adjusting well, Marjorie says. You might make it till morning. She laughs. You try to laugh too. Then she sighs and says something you weren't ready for. You know, this place used to be a church. You blink. Really? Oh yes, back when sin was better funded. The goat sneezes. You wake up with your face pressed against a cold stone. Not a pillow, not a blanket, just stone. Somehow, despite sitting upright in a courtyard surrounded by empty goblets, a half-eaten turnip, and what looks like a very judgmental goose, you've managed to sleep. Or pass out, the line's blurry. It's early morning now, judging by the pale gray sky and the sudden shrill crow of a rooster that may or may not be trained to mock hangovers. A gentle rain falls, not enough to wash anything clean, but just enough to make you wet, itchy, and resentful. You sit up. Something creaks in your spine. You look down at your tunic. It's damp again. Not from rain, from proximity. You don't think about it too hard. Across the courtyard, Marjorie is asleep, face down in an empty wash tub. The goat is gone, probably union break. You step carefully over a puddle that's too warm to be rain and re-enter the brothel through a side door. It leads into a hallway you haven't seen yet, one that smells like incense, cheap beer, and a memory you regret. As you walk, a low voice calls from behind a curtain. Looking for company? You ignore it. You're no longer a client. You're a survivor, possibly. The hallway narrows until it opens into what might be the brothel's main parlor. It's decorated in what could only be described as monastic gone mad. Wooden icons line the walls, but many have had their faces replaced with painted frogs or smiley suns. A large tapestry of St. Ursula hangs crooked above the fireplace. Someone's drawn horns on her, tastefully. There's a stage in the corner, low and splintering, where a man with a long feather in his hat is reciting something that sounds like Chaucer and smells like desperation. No one's listening, except you, and a cat. The cat might be judging. Welcome to the entertainment hour. In medieval brothels, especially in major cities like London, Avignon, or Bruges, entertainment wasn't just a bonus. It was part of the business. Juggling, music, lewd poetry, and what could generously be called interpretive dance were common offerings. After all, medieval foreplay sometimes required a lute. The man on stage finishes his piece with a pirouette and lands in what looks like a leftover stew pot. Someone claps once. It echoes with the enthusiasm of a dying cough. "Next," calls out Mother, who's now seated at a large chair near the fire like she's Empress of Sin and unpaid debts. She waves her arm, and a new performer enters. A woman in a leather tunic, juggling apples and quoting the Book of Revelations in reverse order. You take a seat, cautiously because chairs here bite, and scan the room. There are 5 patrons, 2 dogs, and 1 man dressed like a goat again. You recognize him. Too well. He waves. You nod politely and look away. Beside you, a young man, barely out of boyhood, leans in and whispers, "First time." You nod. He laughs softly. "Me too. Came in for a laugh. Left with fleas and an ex-wife." You want to ask questions. So many questions. But he stands and follows a woman into a side room, leaving only a smear of ale and mystery behind. You order a drink. It's delivered in a wooden mug that might once have been a boot. The contents are chunky. You take a sip and immediately regret it. It tastes like vinegar, old pears, and a hint of fish, possibly on purpose. Fun fact: one common brothel beverage in the Middle Ages was a concoction called hippocras, a spiced wine often reheated and reused across multiple days. It was said to invigorate the blood and occasionally dissolve enamel. A lute player starts tuning nearby. One of the strings snaps. The audience cheers. Apparently, that counts as foreplay. The mood begins to shift as more people filter in, some smiling, others already swaying from whatever they've consumed. You realize too late that this is the performance hour, and you're now officially part of the audience. A burly man with a red nose and no shirt climbs the stage. He raises a chicken aloft. The crowd hushes. Then begins the act. You won't describe it in detail, not because it's obscene, it is, but because you're not entirely sure what happened. There was a hymn. There was interpretive squawking. There was egg juggling. You clap, out of fear. The next act is somehow worse. A pair of twins reenacting the Battle of Hastings using only sock puppets and raw onions. One sock bursts into flames. Someone yells, "Historical accuracy." Historians still argue whether these performances were satire, therapy, or just what happens when fermented cabbage is left too close to open flames. The show ends with a dramatic reading from what sounds like a medieval laundry list. 2 tunics, 1 stained, hose with mysterious damp, sack of barley, questionably acquired. You find yourself deeply moved, or maybe that's just the wine. Suddenly, someone taps your shoulder. You turn. It's Lark. She's wearing a different outfit, still mostly feathers and attitude, and holding a candle shaped like a saint's head. "You still here?" she asks, smirking. "I think so." "Then you need a bath?" That's not an offer, it's a command. You rise. You follow. The brothel's bathhouse is a room adjacent to the kitchens, which already bodes poorly. You enter and immediately choke on the humidity. It's like being waterboarded by soup. The air smells of boiled herbs, sweat, and whatever passed for soap centuries ago. There's a tub. It's made of wood, reinforced with iron bands and deep enough to hide a modest scandal. Steam rises from it in uncertain puffs. Lark tests the water with her elbow and nods. Not boiling. Good enough. You undress. Slowly. Respectfully. The way you would in front of an angry priest. You lower yourself in. The water is lukewarm and gritty, like soaking in medieval regret. A floating leaf brushes your leg. You pretend it's a luxury. She scrubs your back with a brush that's either made of horsehair or wire. "You're lucky," she says. "Most don't make it to the bath." "Why not?" "Too broke, too drunk, too cursed." You nod. "So I'm special." She grins. "Or cursed." You soak in silence. Outside, the evening begins again. Inside, the water goes tepid, and the lice begin to regroup. The water's gone cold. It clings to you now, not with the warmth of comfort, but with the passive aggression of a medieval health inspector. You sit in the tub, knees up, shame down, as Lark finishes scraping something off your collarbone that may or may not have been attached to your body since childhood. "Ever had a leech bath?" she asks suddenly. You flinch. "No." She nods thoughtfully. "We don't offer them. We just get them accidentally. Pipes, mostly." You glance at the water. A ripple passes. You decide not to look closer. The tub groans as you shift. It's less of a creak and more of a warning. You climb out slowly, draped in what might be a towel, or just an unusually absorbent curtain. Lark hands you a fresh tunic, still damp, but with enthusiasm, and nods toward the hallway. Dry off in the kitchen. They've got fire and something resembling bread. The kitchen is a generous term. It's really more of a smoky, semi-enclosed panic chamber where food is born and immediately regrets it. A single hearth dominates the room, with flames licking up a soot-blackened wall. Pans hang from iron hooks, some used, some cursed, some clearly stolen from monasteries. A man stirs a pot that smells like regret. "Supper?" he asks, offering you a ladleful of beige sludge. You nod. You're too hungry to argue. It tastes like oats, onion, and old shoe. The texture is mostly steam. You chew anyway. Across the fire, a woman carves something that used to be meat and now resembles furniture. She glances up. "New?" You nod. She points to the door behind you. "That's the latrine. Don't stay in too long. Some of the fumes chant." Fun fact, sanitation in medieval brothels was largely theoretical. While some establishments maintained basic hygiene to keep disease at bay and the customers coming back, most relied on herbal sachets, incense, and sheer denial to combat odor and infection. A 14th century French brothel reportedly sprinkled mint and rosemary in its bathhouse, though it did little for the rats. You finish your meal and try the bread. It fights back. You put it down gently and back away. Mother appears again, this time holding a pair of boots that clearly do not match. "Yours burned," she says flatly. "These were a gift from a former client. He exploded." You put them on. One is stiff, the other squelches. "Now," she says, "you've bathed, you've eaten, and you owe us for both. You'll need to work it off." You laugh. She doesn't. You are now, apparently, an employee. Flinch hands you a broom. We start new hires in the lounge. Mind the goat. He bites for sport. You trudge back to the main hall, broom in hand, dignity somewhere in your sock. The room is fuller now. Candles lit, musicians playing a mournful tune that sounds like someone weeping into a bagpipe. Patrons lounge on cushions that wheeze when sat upon. One is trying to impress a courtesan by balancing an eel on his forehead. She claps. He falls. You begin sweeping. This is not a simple task. There's straw, crumbs, ash, something that might be a tooth. You push it all toward the corner, where it merges with an existing pile that's begun to form its own ecosystem. Behind you, two women are arguing over a wick. "It's mine," one says. "No, you borrowed it during the Lord's festival and then bled on it," the other snaps. You don't ask questions, you just sweep. Another hour passes. You begin to wonder if this is your life now. Trapped in a house of damp pleasure, cleaning up after acts you don't understand and can't unsee. You fantasize about escaping, about fresh air, about soup that doesn't vibrate. Then someone yells your name. Not your real name, the name you gave when you stumbled in, drunk and flustered. Sir Wimpleton. It haunts you. You turn. It's the goat man. He's holding a tray. "You're being summoned," he says, with the solemnity of a bishop announcing a plague. You follow him, up a staircase that leans like it's had enough, down a hall lined with portraits of people who definitely didn't consent to be painted in this building. One man is mid-sneeze. One is clearly asleep. You arrive at a door. He knocks. It opens. Inside, dark wood, red velvet, and a smell so strong it physically grabs your tongue. Frankincense, vinegar, old citrus peel, and something like ancient wine. She sits on a high-backed chair, legs crossed, a fan in one hand, and a glass of something sinister in the other. The head courtesan. Her name is Cressida. She doesn't rise. "You've lasted longer than expected," she says. "Thanks." Sit. You sit. On a cushion shaped like a swan. The swan's face is accusatory. She studies you. "You're not noble." "No." You're not rich. You check your boots. Definitely not. She smiles. But you're curious. That's dangerous. You nod. Curiosity got me lice. She laughs, the kind of laugh that makes chandeliers flicker. Tell me a story, she says. All new hires must. A story or a song. You opt for the story. You tell her about the time you got stuck in a privy for 2 hours during a village fair. She listens. She claps. She cries a little. Beautiful, she says. You'll do fine. Doing what, you ask? She stands, leans in, and whispers. Front of house. You're not sure what that means. But the goat man bows. And you begin to suspect you're not leaving tonight. The phrase front of house sounds innocent enough, until you live it. You're handed a vest. It's red, patched, and faintly wet. No one explains what with. You put it on anyway because you're a people pleaser and, frankly, have lost control of your life. You'll greet guests, says Flinch, handing you a tiny brass bell. Smile, but not too much. This isn't a wedding. It's a transaction. You take your post at the entrance, under the crooked archway with the swinging sign. It still reads, La Petite Mort et Fromage. The cheese part continues to feel deeply unnecessary. Outside, the sun's gone, replaced by a soggy dusk. Lanterns flicker. Horses clop by slowly, dragging carts full of turnips and existential dread. Rain taps lightly on the eaves, like even the weather's trying to be polite to the horrors happening inside. The first customer approaches, a tall man in a fur cloak that smells like rain and goat. You smile. He scowls. What's the house specialty tonight? He grunts. You freeze. Interpretive dance and damp upholstery? He nods solemnly. I'll take 2. He drops a coin in your palm. It's warm. Why is it warm? He disappears into the hallway. You check the coin. It's foreign. Possibly Byzantine. Possibly a washer. It's shiny, though. Into the pouch it goes. Next comes a woman in armor. Not decorative armor. Real, clanky, made from a dead man's chest plate kind of armor. I want a nun, she says. You blink. Sorry? A nun, or someone with excellent penmanship. I'm not picky. You nod slowly and ring the bell. From down the hall, a figure appears in a wimple and what looks like a slightly scorched choir robe. She carries a ruler and a haunted expression. Enjoy, you whisper as they disappear together. This continues for hours. You greet a man dressed as a goose who requests something involving jam and literature. You welcome a wandering minstrel who offers to pay in songs. Mother accepts, but only because she wants a new theme tune. You even see Borl again. He's carrying a cabbage. She's expecting me, he says, and strolls in like a bishop returning to court. Historically speaking, it wasn't unusual for brothel staff to take on secondary roles. Door attendants, musicians, messengers, even priests in hiding. One London brothel reportedly employed a man who only read poetry to clients while they bathed. His name was Goosehead John, and he died of gout mid-sonnet. You look down at your vest. It's clinging more tightly now. Either it's shrinking, or it has opinions. At one point, you try to sneak away, to breathe real air, maybe find your way home. But Cressida appears behind you like smoke and sarcasm. Leaving already? She asks, sipping her wine. But you haven't even seen the upstairs lounge. That's how you end up in a stairwell that groans with every step. The upstairs lounge isn't a lounge. It's a holding pen for nobility, with guilty kinks and deeper coin purses. There's music here. Soft lutes, whispered harmonies, a man humming into a jar for ambience. Cushions line the floor. Velvet hangs like drapery that lost its will to billow. You take a seat and are immediately mistaken for a customer. A man with astonishing eyebrows approaches. Do you perform the smothering bishop? You sputter. No. Shame. He wanders off. You slink to the bar, where a girl with 3 beauty marks and 0 patience serves drinks with one hand and slaps clients with the other. How special, you ask? Wine and terror, she says, pouring you something gray. Don't breathe near it. You sip. It tastes like vinegar and imagination. A bell rings downstairs. The house is at full capacity. Someone starts yelling about bringing back the hedgehog routine. Someone else throws a spoon in protest. You wonder briefly how it came to this. You could have been a baker, or a monk, or one of those guys who paints saints' knees in cathedral murals. Instead, you're in a brothel, wearing a wet vest, sipping haunted wine, and hoping no one asks you to dress as a cardinal. Suddenly, crash. The door bursts open, rain gusts in, and with it, him. A knight. Real armor, real sword, real unwashed bravado. I seek pleasure, he bellows. Someone claps. He strides forward, steam rising from his pauldrons, and slams a pouch of coins onto the table. I want music, meat, and a woman who can read Latin backwards. You stare. The room falls silent. Then Cressida descends the stairs, radiant and amused. You're late, she says. You're beautiful, he counters. You're loud, she retorts. He bows. I'm Sir Percival, slayer of bandits, wooer of duchesses, terrible at chess. She smiles. Then you'll love our librarian. She signals. A door opens. A woman in spectacles and leather gloves appears. She carries a large book and a small whip. The knight beams. He disappears with her into the velvet abyss. You exhale. It's past midnight now. Your bones ache. Your feet are furious. Your soul has legally separated from your body, and now lives somewhere in the mop bucket. Flinch appears. Break time. You nearly cry. He leads you to the back, a tiny room with a stool, a crust of bread, and a pigeon that won't stop staring. You sit, you chew, the pigeon judges, and you realize you're surviving. Just barely. But not for long. Because tomorrow you still owe for the boots. Dawn doesn't so much rise as slink in sideways, ashamed to witness what's become of you. The brothel is quieter now. Less moaning, fewer lute solos, more groaning and coughing behind doors that should remain shut forever. You sit in the break room, more of a broom closet, really, on your crooked stool, sipping something hot and terrifying that Flinch swears is tea. It smells like boiled wood and betrayal. The pigeon is still watching you. It hasn't blinked in over an hour. You wonder if it's real. Flinch pokes his head in. Mother wants you in the linen chamber. Someone's bled on the saints again. You don't even flinch. You just stand, stretch your aching knees, and walk back into the belly of the beast. The linen chamber is where sheets go to die. It's a narrow, moist tunnel lined with piles of cloth that were once white and are now various shades of historical error. Some are stiff, some are wet, some are making sounds. You try not to notice. Your job? Fold. Fold and stack. That's it. You pick up a sheet and immediately drop it. It's heavier than expected and smells of iron and garlic. You get used to it, says a voice behind you. It's a woman with soot on her face and a lopsided halo tattooed on her neck. I'm B, she says, folding with grim efficiency. I handle the rough linen. What's rough linen, you ask? She picks up a blood-stained pillowcase with something inside it. It clinks. This. You nod. In many medieval brothels, linens were rarely washed, often just turned over or left to dry by fire. The concept of clean was relative. You were more likely to catch fleas than find a fresh towel. Some establishments had a single cloth reused per night, known charmingly as the communal grace. B teaches you the proper technique. Fold along the wound. Always. Never ask questions. And if it's moving, salt it. You pause. Salt? She opens a drawer. Inside, salt. Next to it, chalk, dried rosemary, and something that might be a desiccated frog. She hands you a pouch. Insurance, she says. You work for an hour folding, sorting, salting, and ignoring. It's oddly soothing, like origami for the criminally unwell. B hums as she works. A soft tune that sounds suspiciously like a funeral dirge. You join in. Harmony forms. Madness follows. Suddenly, a knock. Then a shout. Client down in room 7. Needs help walking or exorcism. B sighs. Your turn. You follow the hallway to room 7. The door hangs ajar, groaning on its hinges. Inside, chaos. A man is lying sideways on the bed, tangled in curtain cords and what appears to be a feather boa. His hat is on fire. Hello? You try. He looks up. Am I married yet? No. Good. You extinguish his hat using a nearby boot, help untangle him, and gently lift him to his feet. He smiles. You're very tall for a priest. I'm not a priest. Even better. You guide him to the hallway. He stumbles toward the exit, singing a war ballad that ends in a hiccup. As he leaves, he presses something into your hand. A key. Brass, cold, marked with a symbol, 2 crossed spoons and a fish. You turn it over. What's this for? He winks. The room beneath the floor, where the real fun happens. Then he vanishes into the fog. You pocket the key. Back inside, the atmosphere has shifted again. The morning cleanup has begun. Courtesans wander the halls, hair tied back, feet bare, curses muttered. Flinch is mopping, using a bucket filled with something definitely not water. You report to Cressida. She's sitting cross-legged on a divan, surrounded by candles and what might be pickled olives or shriveled curses. You look tired, she says. I am. Good, she replies. Means you're still alive. You hand her the key. Her eyes narrow. Where'd you get this? Room 7, drunk man, flaming hat. She nods slowly, weighing the key in her palm. You've earned a tour. You try to object, but she's already walking. You follow. Down the main hall past the kitchens, through the linen chamber, and into a tiny alcove lined with broken furniture. She lifts a rug. Beneath it, a trap door. She opens it. A ladder descends into darkness. A flickering lantern hangs nearby, casting just enough light to suggest this is a terrible idea. You're coming? You ask. I'm watching, she says. That's worse. You descend. The air shifts as you climb down, cooler, denser, and oddly floral. The walls are stone, slick with moss and something else. You land in a room barely 5 feet tall, with low ceilings and barrels stacked against the wall. It's a cellar. Or it was. Now it's a vault. Shelves line the walls, filled with jars, some labeled, some not. You see bat tears, ash of virgin bread, and whispers, dry. A small cot sits in the corner, along with a writing desk covered in scrolls. A book lies open, filled with lists. Lord B, 2 nights, 6 lashes. Sister Agnes, 1 vial, paid in teeth. Anonymous duck mask, no questions. You step back. This is the archive. The secret ledger of everyone who's ever bought a fantasy here and paid in something stranger than coin. Cressida speaks softly from above. We keep records for leverage, for laughs, and for when clients try to pretend they're pure. You spot a drawer marked unfinished. You open it. Inside, sketches, plans. One is labeled Crusader Roleplay, Sandpit Plus Singing Monk. Another just says Spinach Room. Historians still debate whether medieval brothels served as blackmail centers, social hubs, or simply underground confessionals with better lighting. Some documents suggest that prostitutes held considerable power, knowing secrets, whispers, bloodlines, debts. Knowledge was its own currency. You climb back up. Cressida closes the trapdoor. "Welcome to the inner circle," she says. "I didn't agree to that." You survived the basement. That's agreement enough. She pats your shoulder. You walk away. Your vest is even wetter now. By now, the smell is permanent. You've stopped noticing it, which, ironically, means it's reached full saturation. Your vest, soggier than ever, clings to your back like a guilty conscience. Your boots squish faintly. You don't even question it. You just squish. You return to the main hall and take your usual place near the door. The night shift is beginning again. New clients arrive. Wide-eyed, flushed, optimistic. Poor fools. You watch them step across the threshold like livestock into a particularly festive abattoir. Tonight, you're no longer the bumbling outsider. You are a fixture, a relic, a warning sign wearing boots. Lark appears beside you, dressed in silver netting, and what might once have been a table runner. "Big night," she says. You raise an eyebrow. "Why?" "Festivals in town. More drunk pilgrims. More bad decisions. And you know what that means." "More laundry?" She grins. "More everything." And she's not wrong. Within an hour, the brothel is throbbing with sound. Flutes, tambourines, clapping, moaning, glass breaking, and someone attempting to juggle eel pies. You direct traffic at the front, trying not to get trampled by a wandering monk who smells of clove oil and moral conflict. A man with a face like a collapsed pudding approaches and announces, "I'm here for the mystery experience." You blink. "Mystery?" He nods. The poster said adventure, confusion, possible enlightenment. You ring the bell. A masked woman appears from the shadows, holding a small chicken and a blindfold. The man grins. Perfect. He follows her into the fog. Medieval brothels often capitalized on holidays, holy days, and days that were just vaguely free of plague. Special events were advertised with crude woodcuts or gossip trails. Some offered discounts for confessing your sins first. Others charged more if you smelled like a tanner. Tonight, it's the Feast of St. Gwenog, a relatively obscure saint best known for taming a rampaging goat with prayer and passive-aggressive silence. The brothel celebrates with goat stew and exactly 0 prayers. Inside, the performers have amped up their act. There's now a puppet show involving 3 sausages and an unsettlingly accurate model of the Pope. Someone's added a hurdy-gurdy to the musical lineup, and every time it winds, a client tips out of pure emotional discomfort. You take a moment to observe the staff. Cressida walks the halls like a queen, elegant, terrifying, and somehow always behind you when you say something stupid. Lark is dancing with a client who looks like he's halfway through a personal crisis. B appears briefly with a tray of wine and a stare that could peel paint. Then there's Marjorie. She's in the center of the lounge, wearing a halo made of forks and telling fortunes. Bad ones. Very bad ones. "You'll die in 3 weeks," she tells a knight. He gasps. "Is it battle?" "No," she says. "Porridge." He tips her a silver. "Fair enough." You sweep absently, the broom now part of your arm. You've bonded. You've been through things. You and the broom are writing a memoir together. Suddenly, A boy bursts through the front door, wild-eyed and panting. "Sirs!" he cries. "There's a brawl at the east end of the market. They're headed this way." You blink. Who? He gasps. Teamsters, but drunk. Cressida appears deadpan. Secure the goat, lock the cabbages, hide the silver. The staff leaps into motion. You're assigned to crowd control, which means standing outside, arms folded, and trying to look intimidating in a vest that still smells like lavender and damp regret. Down the road you hear it. Shouting, stomping, laughter, and the unmistakable twang of a lute being used as a weapon. A small group of teamsters, cart drivers with too much ale and not enough discretion, comes swaggering down the street, singing something that rhymes pestilence with impertinence. You brace yourself. They stop at the entrance. One steps forward, hulking, tattooed, missing a tooth he clearly wasn't using. This the place with the nun? You sigh. We've got several. And the chicken? Yes. And the eel puppet thing? Unfortunately, yes. He smiles. Good, we're staying. They enter like a hurricane of sweat and coin, immediately ordering wine, women, and something called the priest package. The atmosphere shifts again, now louder, hotter, charged like a thunderstorm in a bakery. You take a brief moment to breathe near the window. Outside, the rain starts again, gentle, cool, indifferent. Inside, it's anything but. Flinch joins you. We survive tonight, he says. We get stew. Goat? No, he says. Flavored broth? Goat adjacent? You nod. Deal. The night rolls on in waves. A man claiming he's descended from Charlemagne tries to pay in family crests. A woman demands a room with no mirrors, no cheese, and no vowels. Someone requests the dancing bishop again and is disappointed when it turns out to be just Gregor with a feather hat. Near midnight, a fire starts. Not a big one, just a small, angry fire near the curtain. It's stomped out by a customer who insists he's a reincarnated Roman senator. He is rewarded with an extra fig. You retreat briefly to the linen room, where Bee is chewing licorice and listening to rats fight behind the cupboard. She doesn't look up. You're still standing? Barely. That's one more day than most. You think about that. You think about what it means to survive a night in this place. Not just to emerge whole, but to emerge stranger, wiser, a little itchier. Back at the front door, you open your pouch. There's a coin, not the one you had earlier. This one's carved with a symbol, a spoon, a lute, and a flame. You hold it up. Mother appears beside you. That's your pass, she says. For what? She smiles. To come back. You stare at the coin. You're not sure whether that's a threat or a reward. But either way, you keep it. You don't remember falling asleep. 1 minute, you're leaning against the wall near the fire pit, breathing in the comforting smell of smoked fish and floor polish, and the next, you're being nudged awake by Bee's boot. She doesn't say anything, just raises an eyebrow and jerks her head toward the main hall. You stand. Your back cracks. Your vest creaks. You are, in all measurable ways, one sigh away from crumbling into medieval mulch. Out in the hall, it's that strange hour again. Too late for sin. Too early for penance. The floor is littered with tankards, hairpins, and what might be a stuffed ferret. You don't ask. A low moan rolls through the ceiling beams. Not sensual, not tragic, just tired. You follow it. Down the hall, past the velvet curtain, past the corner where the puppet show has thankfully been disassembled, and through a door you haven't opened before. Inside, a room dimly lit by lanterns shaped like upside-down goblets. The walls are padded, not for comfort, but clearly for containment. The air is thick with incense and something distinctly herbal. A man lies on the bed. He's pale, sweaty, eyes fluttering, muttering Latin. Maybe. You glance around. There are 6 others in the room, 2 courtesans fanning him, 1 novice holding a bowl of something steaming, 1 lute player playing the same 3 notes in a loop, and a man in a black hood. You step in. Someone turns to you. You're the helper? Sure, you say. At this point, identity is negotiable. The hooded man speaks. Client ingested 3 figs, 2 vials of passion draft, and half a smoked eel. You nod. That'll do it. They shift aside so you can see the full horror. The man is convulsing gently, whispering what sounds like the names of every pope in reverse order. He grabs your hand. Tell my wife Then he passes out. Or maybe ascends. You can't be sure. They lift him, courtesans, the hooded man, you, and carry him out through the servants' hall, past the mop buckets, and into the emergency exit, which is just a back alley with a pile of hay and a bucket labeled fresh air, probably. You dump him gently, then return inside. Another fun fact, some medieval brothels, especially in cities with laws and forms to fill out, had emergency protocols for overstimulated clients. This often included herbal teas, soft music, and, if needed, a strategic knock on the head. The phrase to be brothel sick appears in several 14th century documents. Most treatments were just walk it off. Back in the main room, the last of the night's clients are being bundled out with various degrees of dignity. One is still looking for his tunic. Another is convinced he's now married to the goat. Marjorie officiated, so there may be paperwork. Flinch is sweeping with the enthusiasm of a man already dead inside. You join him. Side by side, you both push refuse into one large heap near the hearth, where it'll be burned or fed to the rats. Maybe both. Busy night, you say. Flinch nods. Could have been worse. How? We didn't have to use the fire bucket. You don't ask what that means. Instead, you head toward the back stair, past the room where the bed exploded last week, and into the laundry alcove. The linens are piled higher than ever. B is dozing, snoring faintly, mouth open like a sleepy gargoyle. You toss your vest on the pile. You've earned it. But before you can fully collapse, Mother steps into view. She's wearing a dressing gown that somehow still looks like authority. In one hand, a candle stub. In the other, a sheet of parchment. Inventory, she says, handing it to you. You stare at the list. 3 missing chamber pots, 1 broken crossbow, 6 clients claiming to be nobility, 2 chickens unaccounted for, 1 possible haunting in room 9. You look up. What do I do with this? She shrugs. Start counting. You start with the chickens. Turns out they're in the bathhouse. 1 is wearing a necklace. You count it twice. Next, the crossbow. That one's easy. Gregor's using it to play darts with plums. You mark it functional-ish. Then room 9. You step inside. Immediately regret it. The air is cold. The walls weep. The bed moves slightly when you blink. You hear whispering in French. You back out and write. Haunting confirmed. Fluent. The rest of the list is manageable. Pots are relocated. Nobles are either sleeping it off or quietly weeping in the corner. You finish the inventory just as the sky outside turns gray-blue, the color of lukewarm porridge and bad ideas. You hand the parchment back to Mother. She nods. Acceptable. You lean against the wall. I need sleep. You'll get some. When? She smiles. Now. You're escorted to a small chamber just behind the wine cellar. There's a cot, a blanket, a curtain made of someone's old breeches, and, miracle of miracles, a pillow that smells only slightly of onions. You lie down. You stare at the ceiling. It blinks. You decide not to question it. Sleep comes, not gently, but with the blunt force of a drunk mason. And for a few blissful hours, you dream you're clean. You wake up coughing. Not from illness, though you wouldn't put that past your current immune system, but from the dense cloud of something spicy and herbal wafting in from the hallway. It smells like rosemary, smoke, and whatever lives inside a monk's sock drawer. You roll off the cot, groggy and sore, in places you didn't know had joints. The blanket has fused to your shirt. The pillow is missing. You suspect the ceiling took it back. It's that kind of place. A bell rings 3 times. That's never a good sign. You stagger into the corridor. B passes you with a basket full of lemons. You blink at her. We're being fumigated, she says. For what? She shrugs. Tradition. You shuffle past the wine cellar, past the rat chapel, don't ask, and back toward the central lounge. Everything smells sharper now, like cleansing gone too far. Courtesans cough into their sleeves. Clients groan and retreat to the alley like defeated lords. You spot Flinch wearing a cloth mask tied with string. What's going on? He gestures toward the hearth, where Mother is instructing a man to sprinkle ash in a spiral. City inspection. Your stomach drops. We're being inspected? Technically, yes, but if we confuse them long enough, they'll go away. Has that worked before? He nods solemnly. Last time, we told them we were an orphanage with theatrical leanings. Got a tax break. Medieval brothels, especially in more regulated towns like Bruges or Paris, were often subject to surprise inspections, usually to check for unlicensed activity, disease, or heresy. Some responded by hiding courtesans in barrels. Others forged medical documents. A few just got the inspector drunk enough to forget. Today's tactic seems to be sheer chaos. Cressida appears at your side, elegant as ever in a gown made entirely of curtain tassels. Here's your job, she says, slipping you a bundle of scrolls. You're the scribe. I can't write. She smiles. Neither could the last one. You'll do fine. The scrolls are filled with fake client logs. Brother Alphonse, candle-making consultation. Lady Frippet, goat massage therapy. Sir N, name redacted for anonymity. Sinus remedy, plus flute therapy. She hands you a quill that has clearly seen war. If anyone asks, these are healing records. Got it. And if they press you? You're a faith-based sauna. Good boy. You take your place behind a rickety desk near the entrance, scrolls spread out like the world's weirdest sermon. A glass of wine is placed beside you. You drink it. It's mostly vinegar and possibly basil, maybe holy. The door bursts open. The inspector enters. He's thin, balding, and smells like soap and suspicion. A scribe follows close behind, along with 2 guards in mismatched armor. The mood shifts instantly, tension in the air, like everyone just remembered sin is taxable. Good morning, the inspector says, voice nasal and judgmental. We're conducting a surprise decency assessment. Mother curtsies. We were just bathing the orphans. He eyes her. This is a registered bathhouse, is it? Of the soul, she says without blinking. His eyes narrow. He walks through the lounge, scribbling notes. He points to Marjorie, who is sitting cross-legged on a table balancing a pickle on her head. What is she doing? Penitence. For what? She won't say. That's how you know it's working. He grunts and moves on. You hold your scrolls tighter. They examine the wine barrels. Holy vinegar, someone says. They inspect the sheets. Symbolic embroidery, B offers, gesturing to a bloodstain in the shape of a goose. It's a local saint. The scribe squints. Goose of what? Goose of regret. He nods thoughtfully. My aunt prayed to that one. They make their way toward you. The inspector looms. You. What's your function? You look him dead in the eye. I document moral transformations through hydrotherapeutic confessional arts. There's a pause. Then he nods. We need more of that in the South. You pass him a scroll. He reads, Lord Chubble, arrived with wart, left with clarity. This seems vague. He found peace through pickled herring, an interpretive mime. He raises an eyebrow. I'll allow it. The inspection continues. Cressida slips the guards a bottle each. Souvenirs, she says, from our vineyard. They leave smiling. By noon, the brothel is cleared. No fines, no citations. A miracle. The staff exhales collectively. Mother claps once. Well done, everyone. Back to depravity. The tension dissolves. Back in the kitchen, B offers you bread. It's warm, crusty, and actually edible. You savor it like it's the last comfort on earth. And then you notice something else in the kitchen. A boy, young, nervous, standing near the back door with wide eyes and a coin pouch clutched like a relic. You approach him. First time? He nods. I heard this is where you go when you have nowhere else. You nod too. It is. He frowns. Is it true what they say about the rituals? The goat? You pause. That depends. Do you mean Gregor? He shrinks slightly. I don't know. You lead him inside. A rite of passage. One more soul added to the ledger. That night, the brothel is quieter. The storm passed. The fig wine flows. The linen pile smolders gently in the hearth. You fall asleep near the fire, scrolls in hand, a chicken resting on your foot. And you dream, not of escape, but of exact change. You wake up because someone's trying to shave your eyebrows. You swat blindly, catch a wrist, and open your eyes to find Gregor, shirtless, wearing a crown made of garlic cloves, leaning over you with a butter knife and a manic grin. Ceremonial, he says. You blink at him. What ceremony involves this? He shrugs. One I just invented. Very exclusive. You sit up, brush him off, and glance around the main room. It's still dark. The hearth is just glowing embers now. A courtesan you don't recognize snores softly on the window bench. Someone else is curled under a tapestry featuring Saint Sebastian and what appears to be a wheel of cheese. The brothel at 4 a.m. is not the worst place to be. But it's not the best either. You slip out from under your damp blanket and stretch. Your bones crack like overcooked breadsticks. Gregor skips away, humming a song about oaths and goats. You pretend that didn't happen. You pass the bathhouse, empty now except for the smell, boiled to time and whatever sins refuse to leave. You stop by the linen room, where B is, miraculously, still awake, sharpening a stick with quiet rage. Why are you up? Dreamt I was a broom. You nod. Understandable. Outside, the sky is just beginning to go from pitch black to threatening gray. A new day. A new mistake. You decide to make tea. This is your first real mistake of the morning. The tea in the brothel isn't brewed so much as assembled. You take a tin from the shelf, open it, and find what looks like dried moss, orange peel, 2 small bones, and something that may once have been a spider. You dump it into a cup anyway. Hope is dead. It steeps like a crime. You sip, you regret it. As you lean against the counter, the door bursts open with a familiar joyful shriek. Praise be, I have returned. It's the nun again. Yes, that nun. The one from before. The one who isn't actually a nun, but really commits to the look. She's soaked in rain, grinning like someone who knows 3 secrets and carries a dagger made of candy. Hello, children, she purrs. Have you missed me? Flinch appears, bleary-eyed and holding a mop like a sword. We lock the door. She pats his cheek. Not well enough. This is Sister Tomasa. She's not technically on staff. She's more of an unscheduled visiting professional. She appears when things get too normal and vanishes when questioned too hard. She pulls a sack from under her cloak and dumps it onto the table. Inside, garlic, 2 turnips, and a tax form. I have brought offerings, she announces. You stare. To whom? She smiles. To St. Contrivance, patron of bad plans. You pour her some tea. She sniffs it. Ah, tastes like nightmares. Perfect. She downs it in one gulp and burps softly. Somewhere in the walls, something squeaks in approval. Historically, religious figures often frequented brothels, not always for pleasure, sometimes for penance, surveillance, or protection rackets. One 13th century record shows a nun regularly visiting a bathhouse to count towels and convert drunkards. It's unclear how many towels were saved. Tomasa points at you. You have the look of someone recently reborn through poor decisions. You nod. It's been a long night. Perfect, she says, pulling out a long strip of parchment. You're now my assistant. For what? The ritual. B groans in the background. Not the ritual again. Tomasa stands on a bench. Yes, the ritual again. It begins. She lights a candle. The flame is blue. That shouldn't happen. She hands you a bucket of crushed figs and demands you whisper compliments into it. You whisper, "You have a lovely rind?" She nods approvingly. Next, she draws a chalk circle on the floor, places a spoon in the middle, and demands silence. For 10 full minutes, everyone watches the spoon. Nothing happens. She claps. Success! She turns to you. You're cured. Of what? Exactly. And then she leaves. Out the door, into the fog, just like that. No one follows her. No one ever does. You stand in silence for a moment, holding the bucket of fig compliments, and wonder how this became normal. B breaks the silence. She left a goat last time. Check the pantry. You do. There's no goat. There is, however, a note. Dear sinners, I've borrowed 3 candles and the concept of shame. Return optional. T. You pin the note to the wall, right next to the "Don't feed the dwarves" sign. You return to the kitchen, pour yourself more tea, and try not to think about anything. And then it happens. A knock at the front door. Not a casual knock, a polite one. Everyone freezes. Nobody polite knocks here. Mother appears like fog in a graveyard. Don't answer it. You move toward the door. Don't, she warns. You open it. Standing there, a man in velvet robes, clean boots, and a medallion shaped like a snoring lion. I'm from the guild, he says. You blink. Which guild? The Guild of Licensed Affection. You blink harder. That's real? Oh yes, and we've had complaints. You try to close the door. He wedges a boot in. Let's not be hasty. And just like that, you realize your nightmare's just begun. The man smells like fresh linen and quiet judgment. He steps over the threshold as if it's a velvet rope. Behind him, 2 assistants follow, one carrying a clipboard made of wood so polished it reflects your regret, the other holding what appears to be a sealed jug labeled "Regulatory Fluids, Do Not Sip." You glance at Flinch. Flinch mouths run. Too late. Mother materializes beside you, her smile so sharp it might be ceremonial. Welcome, she purrs, to the house of unyielding comfort. That's not what the sign says, the guildman replies. The sign has personality, she counters. He doesn't laugh. People like him never do. He adjusts his lion medallion and clears his throat. We're conducting a mid-quarter inspection of all officially tolerated establishments, offering carnal, mystical, or ambiguous services. He opens a ledger. We received 5 complaints. You blink. Only 5? That's just today. He flips a page. Complaint 1. A man emerged speaking only in goat noises. Complaint 2. The wine was sentient. Complaint 3. Requested candlelight. Received live fire juggler. Complaint 4. I am now married to someone named Fungus Boy. Complaint 5. Woke up with a tattoo that says, Property of Marjorie. B mutters behind you. Sounds like a Tuesday? The guild man snaps his fingers. We will now conduct our tiered assessment of functionality, ethics, and linens. The second assistant produces a checklist the size of a child. You're handed a mop. Why, you ask? In case something happens, the assistant replies. You do not want to know what something is. The assessment begins in the lounge. They note the candle arrangements, excessively dramatic. The furniture alignment suggests combat training. And the puppet stage? The bishop puppet is missing trousers. Explain. Gregor appears out of nowhere, wearing the trousers in question. He curtsies. The inspector writes down, concerning whimsy, monitor closely. Next, the kitchens. They test the broth. It fizzies. The assistant sniffs it, blacks out for 2 seconds, then wakes up applauding. Approved, he mumbles. The inspector frowns. Herbs must be listed. B scrawls herbs on a napkin and tapes it to the wall. Approved. They open a cupboard. A chicken stares back. So sorry, B says, shutting the door. The inspector lifts his medallion, holds it to the door like it's a holy relic. We will address that later. Onto the bathhouse. There's steam, always, but this time it forms into something vaguely biblical. The assistant shouts, I think the steam judged me. That's normal, you say automatically. They take notes. They inspect the soaps. One contains teeth. You shrug. Exfoliating. The inspector frowns. Mother smiles. The next phase? Moral calibration. Cressida is summoned. She's in her morning robe, a tasteful black velvet number with embroidered weasels. Her hair is up. Her mood is not. I was promised I'd never see a clipboard in this establishment, she says. Ma'am, says the inspector, how would you describe your establishment's guiding philosophy? She doesn't blink. We offer existential reflection through immersive sensuality and curated trauma. The inspector actually writes that down. You notice the second assistant has started swaying rhythmically, possibly from fumes. Then it's time for the final test. They call it the client reconciliation simulation. One of the guild members, nervous, twitchy, pretends to be a disgruntled customer. You are required to address their concerns while maintaining emotional poise, clarity of service, and robe coverage. They pick you to run it. Of course, the mock client storms in. I was promised warmth and affection. Instead, I got a cat in a bonnet and a lecture about grain storage. You clear your throat. That cat's name is Princess Crumpet, and she has opinions. As for the grain lecture, it was thematic, part of our new peasant penance package. Very exclusive. The inspector tilts his head. Go on. You improvise. It includes cuddling, cold porridge, and someone yelling at you about your thatching skills. We're booked solid through Michaelmas. There's a long pause. Then slowly, the guild man nods. Innovative, terrifying, legally ambiguous. He snaps the ledger shut. We'll allow it. Everyone exhales. Mother claps once. Tea? The inspector declines, wisely. As they leave, Flinch whispers, That's the best performance since the two-priest incident. You never ask what that was. The door shuts. Peace returns. Kind of. Cressida appears beside you. Well done, she says. I lied to a regulatory body, you reply. Yes, she says, and you did it with heart. That's what we value here. You lean against the wall. You are sticky. You are sore. You are halfway to sainthood or syphilis. But for now, you're in the clear. Until B runs in. Room 9's bed is bleeding again. Mother sighs. Get the salts. You grab your mop. Just another morning. Just another stain. Just another reason. You wouldn't survive a second night. Room 9 doesn't have a door. Not anymore. It has an entrance. A curtain fashioned from old choir robes and what appears to be 3 stitched together pairs of trousers. You pull it aside and immediately regret everything. The bed is indeed bleeding. Slowly, methodically, from the headboard. You take a cautious step inside. The smell is complicated. A blend of damp wood, iron, and something sweetly rotting, like a fig that made bad life choices. B enters behind you, holding a pouch of salts and a candle shaped like St. Apollonia's molar. She surveys the scene. Still leaking? Worse than last time. She sighs. We buried the mattress twice. You nod solemnly. It came back. This room, everyone agrees, is cursed. Not in a loud, thunderclapping, screaming Latin sort of way, just in the casual, persistent, dripping sort of way that ruins furniture and souls. According to the brothel's unofficial oral history, Room 9 used to be the cellar of a local leech farmer who mysteriously vanished mid-marrow extraction. His bed remained. So did the damp spot. So did the weeping. You get to work. Salt the bed frame. Light the molar candle. Whisper the phrase Flinch insists worked once. You are heard. Now, shush. The leak slows. The candle flickers. B nods. That'll hold. Maybe. You both back out slowly. Curtains swing behind you, like a wet sermon. Outside the room, Flinch is waiting with a mop and what looks like a defensive posture. Did it talk this time? Just groaned. Progress. It's barely sunrise, and the brothel is stirring again. A new set of guests has arrived. A pair of Flemish merchants, a bard who insists on payment in limericks, and, concerningly, a monk covered in glitter. You don't ask. No one does. You head toward the kitchens for tea. Again. Still. Perpetually. Cressida's there already, perched on a stool in a red silk robe that seems to defy gravity and judgment. She's eating porridge with a dagger. Room 9 bled again, you tell her. She shrugs. It's got emotions. We respect that here. You sit across from her. She studies you, chewing slowly. You've lasted longer than most. You're not sure if that's a compliment or a preamble to a curse. She sets down her bowl. You ever wonder why people come here? You blink. Desperation? Boredom? Poor impulse control? She smiles. Same reasons people go to church? She leans in. This place offers confessions, just not the absolution. It's then you hear a crash. Then screaming. Then a faint voice yelling, "The weasels are back!" You rush toward the lounge. There, in the middle of the floor, chaos. The puppet stage is on fire. Marjorie is waving a flaming marionette and yelling, "They doubted me!" But the bishop danced. Clients scatter. A lute explodes. B walks in, sees the flames, and dumps an entire bucket of bathwater over the stage. The fire hisses. The puppets melt. Marjorie weeps. You hand her a fig. She accepts it with dignity. Things calm. Gregor walks in, holding a bucket full of damp feathers. Too late? Just in time. He dumps the feathers on the fire for flare. Flinch sweeps up a piece of smoldering saint. You step outside, just for a moment. The alley is quiet. Fog curls in lazy swirls across the cobbles. The smell of ashen wine wafts through the doorway. You exhale, and then you hear it. A slow, rhythmic clomp. You turn. A horse. A man atop it. Chainmail, banner, torch. Oh no, not again. It's Sir Percival. He reins in the horse, dismounts with an enthusiastic grunt, and slaps a sack of coins into your chest. I return, he proclaims, for the triple loot fantasy. You blink. What? I want 3 loots at once, and a woman who can recite the Magna Carta backward. You glance inside. You'll get 2 lutes, a cranky violin, and B. He smiles. Perfect. You lead him in. The staff assembles quickly. Lutes are found. B warms up her Latin. Someone fetches wine. Sir Percival removes his armor, piece by clanking piece, until he's in silk trousers and a hat made of garlic knots. The show begins. In the background, Gregor juggles lemons. One hits a candle. It ignites. Again. You extinguish it with your mop. Cressida watches from the stairwell, sipping wine from a chalice shaped like a screaming cherub. Business, she says, is beautiful. You're handed a fig. You don't ask why. You eat it. And for one brief, shining, incredibly confusing moment, you feel something close to peace. Peace, like everything in this establishment, is fleeting. It lasts exactly 12 minutes, just long enough for Sir Percival's lute fantasy to unravel into a shouting match between B and the cranky violinist over whether C minor is a heresy. A string snaps. So does someone's patience. The wine jug falls over. Percival slips on a fig and goes down like a sacred cow in a thunderstorm. You help him up. He thanks you by bestowing upon you a small badge shaped like a turnip. It's a family crest, he says solemnly. We're root-based nobility. You pocket it. Of course you do. From across the room, Marjorie eyes you. She's sharpening something, possibly a quill, possibly a moral. Flinch limps past, muttering, "That's the 3rd string-related injury this week. We need to switch to drums." Drums would be worse. Always are. You retreat to the kitchen. You've earned it. Tea is bubbling ominously in the corner. B is already there, face in her hands, muttering to herself in ancient Flemish. You sit across from her. "No more lute nights," she says. You nod. Agreed. And no more garlic hats. That was a surprise. She lifts her head. You're adapting. I've stopped screaming internally, if that's what you mean. She considers. That's either growth or trauma hardening. Either way, congrats. You sip your tea. It tastes like bark and poor boundaries. Suddenly, knock knock. You freeze. Not the door. The wall. Knock knock. You glance at B. She stands slowly, picks up a small candle, and walks to the far wall. It's the one near the back pantry, the one no one touches, the one the mice avoid, the one that always feels just a little bit too still. Knock knock. 3 slow knocks. B leans in. "Who seeks?" she whispers. A pause. Then from behind the stone, muffled, ancient, and disturbingly polite, "We have figs." She groans. Not again. You blink. What is that? The smugglers. Pause. Of what? B sighs. Mostly cheese. Occasionally theology. Once, a duck. She opens a hatch low in the wall, barely waist high. A pair of eyes blink back. A small man slides out, holding a wheel of cheese and a scroll. "I come bearing dairy and metaphor," he says cheerfully. B waves him through. "Cellars on the left, mind the leak." He vanishes into the shadows. You lean against the counter. We let smugglers in through the pantry? Better than the tax office. She's not wrong. In the Middle Ages, smuggling networks often used brothels as transit points, not just for goods, but for letters, banned books, and occasionally political refugees in novelty hats. No one suspects the brothel, or more accurately, everyone suspects it, but they're too embarrassed to investigate. Another knock. You brace for it. But it's just Flinch this time, holding a scroll and looking mildly traumatized. You're wanted upstairs. Why? He hands you the scroll. It reads, "Tonight, performance review." You feel sick. B pats your back. They only execute people on Fridays. It is Friday. I'll light a candle. You ascend the main staircase where every step groans like it has secrets. Upstairs, the air changes. Quieter. Heavier. The noise of the main hall fades, replaced by the whisper of silk and the occasional cough of a nobleman allergic to commoners. You reach the landing. Cressida is waiting. She gestures to a velvet chair. You sit. She doesn't. She paces slowly in front of you, robe trailing like a particularly sassy shadow. You've been here. How long now? You shrug. 3 days? Maybe 7 years? Time is soft in this building. She nods. You've mopped, carried, placated, and narrowly avoided haunting lawsuits. And yet, pause. You remain mostly sane. You smile weakly. She leans forward. Do you want to stay? That's a dangerous question. You think about the smells, the food, the people, the bed that bleeds, the goat, the nun, the inspector, the scrolls, the figs. You think about how much you've changed, how much worse you've become. And yet, it's never boring. She smiles. That's what we offer here. Not pleasure, not comfort, just distraction. She hands you a pin, small, made of wood, carved in the shape of a fig. Congratulations, she says. You're official staff now. You blink. I thought I already was. You were a temporary inconvenience. Now you're a documented liability. You feel something close to pride. She nods. Get some sleep. You start managing room 9 in the morning. Your pride melts. You descend the stairs slowly, clutching your fig pin, mentally preparing yourself for whatever managing means in a room that has independent moods. Back in the kitchen, B raises an eyebrow. You show her the pin. She nods. Sympathy tea? Please? She pours. You sit. You sip. And behind the wall, the smuggler starts singing softly. Something about cheese and redemption. It's oddly beautiful. You don't cry, but you consider it. You are now the manager of room 9. Congratulations. You've earned a promotion that no one wants and everyone avoids, much like medieval dentistry or volunteering for trebuchet testing. The handover is brief and grim. Flinch meets you outside the curtain, holding a broom like it's a crucifix. It's calm down, he whispers. For now, don't touch the pillow. Don't say the phrase blessed slumber. And above all, he leans in close. Never compliment the furniture. You nod solemnly. He pats your shoulder. Godspeed. He flees. You enter. Room 9 smells like lavender, old milk, and something faintly metallic, like guilt preserved in vinegar. The candle by the bed sputters constantly. No matter how much wax is left, it always flickers like it's short of breath. You take inventory. The bed, present. Large, creaking ominously. The mattress pulses slightly, but not in a haunted way. More of a passive-aggressive loaf of bread. The rug, damp, permanently. The chamber pot, missing. That's worrying. The window still doesn't open, still muttering. You sit on the edge of the bed, very slowly. It accepts you. You whisper a soft thank you out of habit. The mirror across the room is cracked. Not broken, cracked as if it's trying to tell you something in Morse code. You check your reflection. You look medieval, worn, slightly lopsided. The house will do that to you. Outside, the hallway bustles again. New guests. You stand and prepare the room for inspection. You swap the linens, none of which match, sprinkle some stale rosemary across the pillow, and place a fig on the bedside table. Tradition. No one remembers why. Then comes the knock. 3 sharp taps. You open the curtain and find yourself face to face with someone you didn't expect. A priest. A real one by the looks of him. Clean robe, shiny cross, eyes like someone who's never knowingly consumed eel wine. "I'm here," he says softly, "for the quiet package." You blink. "Is that a real thing?" He nods. "I was told room 9 listens." You don't know who told him that, but you hope they stub their toe. You lead him in. He removes his boots, clean, polished, unworthy of this establishment, and sits gingerly on the bed. It groans in protest. He places a book on the nightstand, leather-bound, no title. You hover awkwardly. "Would you like anything?" He nods. Silence. So you leave. Outside, Flinch is lurking with a bucket. "Is he in?" You nod. He's lasted longer than the last priest. You raise an eyebrow. What happened to him? Started hearing Latin backward. Tried to baptize the goat. Did it take? No. The hallway buzzes with new activity. A woman in gold shoes is trying to climb a bookshelf. B is arguing with Gregor over whether or not he legally counts as a feature. Marjorie walks past carrying a pie and a knife, and you don't ask why. Meanwhile, you loiter near room 9. An hour passes. No screaming. 2 hours. Still no screaming. You peek inside. The priest is meditating, sitting perfectly still, breathing slowly, eyes half shut. The candle hasn't sputtered once. The bed isn't leaking. Even the rug looks less damp. Room 9 is calm? That's not right. You tiptoe inside. The priest opens one eye. "It likes me," he whispers. "I've never seen it behave." "It remembers," he says. "Remembers what?" But he closes his eyes again. That's not helpful. You sit by the door, just in case. Another hour passes. You begin to doze. Then, a creak, a groan. The bed shifts violently. The candle flares blue. The priest is smiling. You panic. What's happening? He opens both eyes. It's feeding. On what? Me, he says, perfectly calm. You grab his arm. We're leaving. No. You yank harder. Then the bed speaks. A low, drawn-out whisper. Stay. You scream internally, possibly externally. You drag the priest by the collar, stumbling backward through the curtain. The bed deflates like a dying bagpipe. Back in the hallway, the priest coughs once, adjusts his robe, and beams. That was transcendent. You stare at him wide-eyed. It almost ate you. Almost. He bows. Thank you. He leaves. You stare at room 9. It's silent again. You walk to the kitchen and sit very still on the floor. B finds you 10 minutes later, holding a spoon and murmuring about sentient furniture. She hands you tea. It's okay. You did your shift. I think I unlocked a religion. She pats your shoulder. We all do eventually. In the corner, Gregor is assembling something out of turnips and string. You close your eyes. You breathe. And somewhere deep in the house, room 9 sighs. Your hand won't stop trembling. whether from fear, exhaustion, or the tea be handed you that tasted suspiciously like clove oil and wet rope. You're unsure. Either way, you've made it through your first full day as manager of Room 9. The room hasn't consumed anyone, burst into song, or transformed into an alternate theological argument. Yet. You drag yourself to the hearth, where Gregor is roasting a shoe. For flavor, apparently. You don't ask. Flinch appears beside you, flops onto the floor, and hands you a piece of toast. Burnt, he says, charred for character. You eat it anyway? It tastes like ash and unspoken apologies. Busy morning, you ask? 2 spontaneous marriages. 1 spiritual awakening. Someone tried to baptize a sausage. Room 9? Behaved. You both nod in silence. Then the front door swings open and a breeze rolls in, thick with the scent of mud and arrogance. A man steps in, trailing 5 other men and at least 2 instruments. He's tall, dressed in furs, and carries a walking stick carved with deeply inappropriate images of saints. I, he declares, am Baldwin of West Dunkelford, heir to 3 cows and a significant family argument. I demand revelry. Everyone groans. Cressida appears from the shadows, flawless as always. He's back, she says simply. Apparently Baldwin is a regular. He immediately throws a coin pouch at the table. It explodes in a puff of copper and lint. I seek flesh, drink, firelight, and the performance of Tragedy of the Bleeding Baker. He announces. B groans. Not again. Gregor claps. I still have the props. You stare at Cressida. What is this? She sighs. Baldwin thinks he's a playwright. Comes twice a season to stage his masterpiece. Is it good? It's 12 hours long and mostly screaming. She assigns you a role. You're the grieving cousin. Page 14. Don't cry too loud. You take the script. It's covered in bacon grease and passive-aggressive notes in Latin. You begin. The brothel transforms. Curtains are pulled. Candles are lit. Clients are conscripted into the audience. Marjorie sets up the props, which include 3 loaves of stale bread, a tax ledger, and a headless puppet. The play begins. Baldwin takes center stage, wearing a tunic made entirely of belt straps and dreams. Friends, lovers, bakers of the realm, weep for your yeast. The audience stares. You wait for your cue. Your line arrives. He needed the truth until it rose too far. You say it with feeling. Baldwin sobs. Someone in the crowd applauds, possibly ironically. A client asks if this is still the brothel. Gregor, now dressed as a fire sprite, pelts him with croutons. The play drags on. There's a subplot about wheat taxes. A dance number involving geese. At one point, B interrupts to shout, "We need the latrines back, Baldwin. This scene's lasted 40 minutes. Baldwin refuses. Art knows no bladder. Eventually, mercifully, Cressida intervenes. Intermission, she says, snapping her fingers. The crowd disperses. Baldwin bows deeply and drinks from a mug labeled Ambition. You hide in the kitchen. Flinch joins you. That was better than last time. Only 3 faintings and 1 attempted lawsuit. Who fainted? Gregor, for effect. You sit by the fire and remove your boots. Steam rises. A rat sniffs your sock, then respectfully retreats. Cressida walks in holding a list. You're on evening rotation, she says. Massage, mop, and moderate the gambling table. You nod weakly. Got it. She leans in. Also, the mirror in room 4 is talking again. Tell it it's beautiful. You nod again. You make your rounds. In the lounge, you break up a fight over a fig. You distribute wine, but only the batch that doesn't whisper. You massage a man's shoulders while he recites all of Charlemagne's alleged mistresses. In room 4, you compliment the mirror. It purrs. You walk past room 9. It's quiet. You keep walking. Later, you join B and Flinch at the gambling table. It's just bones, bread crusts, and a suspicious die carved from what might be tooth. 3 crusts on Gregor, B mutters. Too risky, says Flinch. Gregor loses. Gregor always loses. You win 1 round. The prize? A spoon. Silver? No. Wood? Not quite. You don't ask. As night deepens, the mood shifts again. The lighting dims, the musicians switch to slower melodies, and the brothel begins its descent into evening melancholy, a phase between debauchery and despair, where everyone's too tired to sin, but too anxious to sleep. You clean quietly. You mop around unconscious clients. You light candles that only smell faintly like mildew. You patch a curtain with a sock. You pause for a moment and look around. There's laughter in the corner. Marjorie singing something low and sad. Bee sipping from a chipped mug. Flinch reading aloud to a sleeping chicken. And for a second, just one strange, inexplicable second, you don't want to leave. Because despite the madness, despite the damp, despite the whispering linens and cursed flatware, you found a rhythm. A horrible fungal rhythm. But a rhythm nonetheless. You've stopped flinching at the moaning. Not because it's less unsettling, but because after 2 weeks in this place, everything moans. The floorboards, the pipes, the eel tank, the clients, sometimes even the wine. So when the walls in the west hallway let out a soft, drawn-out, you just nod to yourself and keep sweeping. It's evening now. Not the exciting part of evening, more like the post-lust cool-down, where the wine's lukewarm, the figs are half-eaten, and everyone's pretending their decisions made sense. The fireplace crackles in protest. Gregor's asleep under a table, muttering in Old Norse. A client has confused him for a footrest and hasn't noticed. You've just finished wiping candle wax off a velvet cushion when Cressida approaches, gliding like a prophecy. You're on courtyard duty, she says. You groan. Can't Flinch do it? He did it yesterday. He's still twitching. You can't argue with that. The courtyard is a strange part of the brothel. Not public, not private, just between. A place for clients too embarrassed to leave and too broke to stay. The air always smells of regret and time. There's a tree in the middle that bears no fruit, but hums when it rains. You step outside. The sky is soft and bruised, clouds like tired bread dough stretching over the rooftops. A cat watches you from a drainpipe, eyes glowing with either curiosity or judgment. There are 3 men in the courtyard already. One is throwing pebbles into a bucket and declaring victory every time. One is sobbing into a cabbage. The third is sitting still, eyes closed, whispering something under his breath that sounds like tax law. This is normal. You settle onto a bench, mop across your knees like a reluctant knight, and breathe. B joins you 10 minutes later, carrying 2 mugs of tea and a wrapped package. She hands you one. It's goat-flavored, she says. Allegedly. You sip. It's not bad. She unwraps the package, flatbread with questionable meat and a sprig of rosemary. Staff dinner, she explains. You eat in silence until the sobbing man with the cabbage perks up. Do you hear it? You freeze. Hear what? He points to the tree. You both listen. Sure enough, the tree is humming. Low, deep, musical. It does that sometimes, B says calmly. No one knows why. You raise an eyebrow. Seriously? Some say it's cursed. Others say it's wind through the bark. She shrugs. Gregor says it's a trapped minstrel. We stopped listening to Gregor after the spoon incident. You look at the tree. It continues humming. You decide to ignore it. Inside, The brothel is bustling again. The lull has passed. Lute music trickles down the halls like cheap perfume. Clients dance, argue, confess. Someone screams, "I have a diploma," and falls down the stairs. You re-enter just as Marjorie begins her evening ritual, shouting predictions from the top of a wine barrel. "You!" She points at a nobleman in a pink cape. "You'll marry thrice, each time to the same horse." He bows deeply. "My destiny is clear." Flinch is organizing the fig drawer again. You've stopped asking what half of them are used for. A new client stumbles in, wide-eyed, panting, dressed like a lost librarian. Is this the house of unyielding comfort? Mother steps forward. That depends. Are you looking for redemption, punishment, or peculiar muffins? He gulps. Punishment? She gestures to a hallway. Third door on the left. Duck when you enter. Literally. He vanishes. You join B behind the main counter. "There's a letter for you," she says, handing over a parchment rolled tight and tied with a string made of braided horsehair. It smells faintly of almonds and burnt toast. You open it. It reads, "To the new staff of the establishment, formerly known as House of the Heated Hemlock, we, the Council of Nightly Regulation and Sauce, do formally invite your attendance at the bi-monthly brothel banquet. Bring wine, charm, and something that won't offend the clergy." You blink. A banquet? B nods. Every brothel in the region sends someone. There's food, bragging, wrestling, and judging, sometimes in that order. Do we have to go? Yes, says Cressida, appearing behind you, as if summoned by your stress. We haven't sent a representative in 3 seasons. They're starting to think we've gone respectable. And I'm going? She nods. You're weird enough to represent us. You feel oddly proud. She hands you a tunic. Wear this. It's bright orange and embroidered with an anatomically questionable griffin. There are feathers. There are bells. There is shame. I look like a parade float, you mutter. Perfect. The banquet is tomorrow. You return to the courtyard, still in shock. The tree has stopped humming. Gregor is now whispering to the cat. B pats your arm. Don't worry. They only roast 1 person per banquet. You stare. Usually, you look up at the sky. You wonder how many people went to a brothel just once and never came back. Not because they were scared, but because they understood. You sip your tea. It still tastes like goat. The banquet tunic is cursed. Not officially. Not in any documented, church-condemned, scroll-stamped sort of way. But the moment you put it on, you feel your dignity evaporate like morning dew on a blacksmith's forehead. The sleeves are too long, the hem too short, and the bell on the collar jingles every time you breathe, think, or reconsider your life choices. B winces when she sees you. You look like a lute that lost a bet. Gregor whistles. 10 crusts say they mistake you for entertainment. You adjust the griffin embroidery on your chest. It's not anatomically correct, so much as philosophically incorrect. Its limbs defy both God and geometry. Cressida clasps your shoulder, gently but firmly. You represent all of us now, which is why you must project confidence, mystery, and the vague scent of smoked cloves. Do I smell like that? You smell like broom sweat and regret. Here. She hands you a sachet filled with crushed herbs and, based on the texture, maybe teeth. You don't ask. You stuff it in your sleeve. The banquet of brothels is held at a neutral location, a converted monastery turned halfway house turned civic hall, now dimly lit with lanterns shaped like saints holding wine bottles. The crowd is enormous. Hundreds of courtesans, madams, clients, jugglers, tax assessors, and at least 1 confused falconer. Your arrival does not go unnoticed. The moment you step through the doorway, a man in a velvet codpiece exclaims, "Ah, the Hemlock House! We assumed you'd all been turned into soup." You force a smile. "Only Gregor." They laugh. You don't clarify. A gong sounds. A large man with a golden ladle steps forward. "Welcome, children of pleasure, piety, and poor decision-making. Let the banquet begin." And it does. You are herded to a long table where seating is alphabetical, inexplicably, by Brothel's slogan. You're next to the Velvet Crucible, and across from the nunnery. No actual nuns, just guilt. The meal is served in courses. Boiled pears stuffed with cheese and something unidentifiable. Bread that crunches like it contains secrets. A stew labeled emotional clarity that makes your tongue vibrate. B would have loved this. A man in peacock feathers leans over. "You're from the brothel with the talking bed, right?" You freeze. "We have a conversational mattress, yes." He grins. "I've always wanted to debate theology with upholstery." You offer him a fig. It's polite. He takes it reverently. Next comes the judgment of presentation. Each brothel is required to send someone forward to explain what makes their house unique. Most bring dancers, poets, or muscular people covered in goose grease. Cressida, in her infinite cruelty, signed you up. You are handed a lemon, a candle, and a sock puppet named Francis. You step on stage. The host raises an eyebrow. "Hemlock House?" You nod. Someone snickers. You inhale. "My house," you begin, "offers not just carnal delight, but a journey. We are the intersection of medieval medicine, mild haunting, and affordable catering." There are gasps. I present Francis the Fig Prophet. You raise the puppet. He speaks truth, and occasionally Latin. You light the candle. The sock bursts into flames. Someone screams. You stomp it out. "Performance art," you yell, sweat pouring. Someone claps. Slowly. Then more. The applause grows. Some of it's ironic, some isn't. You bow, pants slightly smoldering. You return to your seat, shaking. Velvet Crucible's representative leans over. "That was bold." You exhale. That was Tuesday. Dessert arrives. Tiny cakes shaped like saints, each filled with jelly and political commentary. You eat St. Ignatius. He tastes of strawberry and suppressed ambition. Next comes the tale exchange, where representatives must swap scandalous or inspiring stories. The man beside you recounts a night where a bishop accidentally officiated 5 weddings between a pig and various vegetables. You share the story of room 9, of the bed that sighs, of the priest who fed it serenity, of the candle that flickered blue, and the curtain that swayed like it had something to say. By the end, the room is quiet. Even the juggler stops. The host nods. Haunted furniture always wins. Then someone throws bread. The ritual of carbohydrate combat begins. It is, quite literally, a food fight with rules. You dodge a baguette. You retaliate with a lemon. The man from the tannery of tension hits you square in the neck with a wheel of cheese. You retaliate with Francis the sock puppet, now slightly charred. In the melee, you see Baldwin from the Bleeding Baker play. He's shouting, "This is my artistic vision," and wielding a sausage like a sword. You duck. You crawl under a table. You find the host there, calmly eating a fig tart. He offers you one. You take it. "It's always like this," he says. "I can see that." You both nod, fig juice running down your chin. Eventually the chaos ends. Everyone is sweaty, bruised, and vaguely sticky. Prizes are awarded. You win Best Emergency Theology. You wear your medal proudly. It's made of pewter and anxiety. On the walk home, you are quiet. The moon is full. Your tunic is damp. Your dignity is asleep somewhere under the pudding table. But you made it. You survived the banquet. And you realize something odd. You missed the brothel. You missed the smell, the candles, the shrieking linens and judgmental mirrors. You missed room 9. God help you. You walk faster. You arrive back just before dawn, tunic wilted, metal crooked, fig stains turning a suspicious shade of green. The brothel is asleep, or pretending to be. A candle flickers in the hallway like it's gossiping to itself. The rug under your feet coughs gently. One of the paintings on the wall has been replaced with a slightly damp sock bearing the words, "Do not ask." Home. You push open the kitchen door. Bee is there, dozing upright in a chair with her face buried in a half-eaten scone. Flinch snores on the floor, clutching a broom like a teddy bear. Gregor is seated beside the fire, attempting to teach a spoon how to read. No one notices you at first, until the spoon says, in a perfectly human voice, "Welcome back." Everyone freezes. Gregor drops it. It's not supposed to answer. Bee bolts upright, croissant stuck to her cheek. You lived. You nod and collapse into the nearest seat. There was cheese and judgment and a woman who claimed to be descended from Saint Sebastian's left boot. Flinch grunts. That's real. They're in the registry. Bee pushes tea toward you. It smells like mint and possibly regret. How did we do, you ask? Bee shrugs. 2 fights, 1 elopement, and room 9 tried to sing, but Gregor played lute until it shut up. Gregor waves proudly. It respects me now. You sip your tea and sink into the warmth of the hearth. Around you, the brothel breathes. Not in a literal disturbing way, though that certainly happened, but in the way a place becomes familiar, lived in, claimed by madness. And now it's yours. You've endured the initial trials, survived the rats, the bleeding furniture, the sock puppet arson. You've been blessed by Cressida, threatened by linens, and emotionally compromised by a haunted bed. Most importantly, you understand the rhythm now. The way this brothel isn't just a place for pleasure. It's a place where people unravel safely, where desire and grief and idiocy meet in a cloud of incense and bad wine, where every room holds a secret and every secret wears rouge. And then you remember something. You sit upright. Where's the priest? Bee blinks. What priest? The one who fed room 9 serenity. He said he'd return. There's a long pause. Flinch frowns. We don't get many priests. Bee leans forward. What did he look like? You describe him. The robe, the calm voice, the haunted smile. Bee's expression changes. That's not a priest, she says quietly. That's Brother Delwyn. He was excommunicated for exorcising soup. Gregor nods. He once tried to marry a pew. You blink. So, not real. Oh, he's real. Just not the kind of priest you want guiding your furniture. You look toward the stairwell. Room 9 is silent. Bee pats your arm. If it starts chanting again, we'll send Gregor. Or Francis, Flinch suggests, holding up the sock puppet. You all stare at it. Francis stares back. You opt to ignore him. Later that morning, Cressida gathers the staff for a formal announcement. She stands on a wine crate in the lounge, robe billowing like a flag of controlled chaos. Hemlock House, she begins, has rejoined the Register of Recognized Establishments. We are now officially a problem again. There is applause. Some sarcastic, most not. She nods. And for your efforts, she gestures to you. We have decided to promote our newest staff member. You blink. To what? Deputy Manager of Hallway Whisperings and Bedside Apparitions. Bee claps. Gregor salutes with a sausage. flinch, sobs into a mop. You wear your fig pin with pride. And then comes the knock. At the front door. Slow, heavy, familiar. B answers. It's Baldwin. Covered in glitter. Wearing nothing but a sheet and an expression of unrepentant mischief. I have written a sequel, he says grandly. No, B says. Yes, Cressida says. You groan. A lute is already being tuned. You walk back toward the kitchen, passing room 9. It's humming again. Softly, comfortably. You smile. Then duck as the chandelier drops an earring on your head. Gregor catches it. It's flirting again. You don't even flinch. Because this is your life now. And somehow, impossibly, you wouldn't have it any other way. The wind down begins softly, like a curtain falling after the last clumsy bow. By now, the brothel is quiet again. Not silent, never truly silent. The walls here exhale. The candlelight sways gently with unseen footsteps. Somewhere linen shifts in its sleep. But it's the kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything of you. It just allows. You're lying on the floor in the lounge, head propped against a velvet cushion that smells faintly of nutmeg and someone's past mistakes. B is curled up beside the hearth, stirring her tea not out of need, but habit. Gregor snores peacefully on a bench, one foot twitching to a dream lute solo. Even room 9, tucked away upstairs, emits only the softest creaks, like an old ship at anchor, no longer hunting for souls. This is peace in its own strange shape. You think about how much you've changed. When you first stepped into this place, you flinched at every groan, every whisper behind the wallpaper. Now you speak softly to the floorboards as you pass. You light candles for no reason. You instinctively duck near room 7, where the ceiling sometimes forgets it's a ceiling. You've survived the fig wine, the goat performance, the sock puppet arson. You've been blessed by a haunted mirror, flirted with by a tree, and accused of sainthood by a confused nun in disguise. You've watched nobles cry into cabbage and peasants argue over the emotional rights of ducks. And somehow, none of it breaks you. It reshapes you. The fire crackles beside you. The flames are low now, content just to glow. You can hear B humming under her breath, something old, lullaby-shaped. Gregor murmurs in his sleep, the word ladle floating lazily into the air. You exhale. Outside, the sun is beginning to rise. Pale light seeps through the warped glass panes, turning dust into gold, broken furniture into relics, and this crooked, crumbling house into something nearly sacred. Cressida passes by, her robe brushing the ground like mist. She doesn't speak, just nods. It's enough. You feel your eyes grow heavy, the kind of heavy that invites, not demands. Your limbs sink. Your thoughts stretch out like cats in a sunbeam. The madness of the place quiets with you, as if even the brothel itself has decided to nap for a while. So you let go. You let the bells dim. You let the bed stop moaning. You let the mirrors keep their secrets. And you let your body fold into the warm hush of survival. This isn't the ending you expected, but it's the one you've earned. Welcome home.